Hey, how we doing? Contra-Dictions episode 30 coming to you on a Friday night. We're going to talk a little bit about Biden and Harris and how Trump maybe tried to sabotage their first appearance on TV, and a little bit of college football being canceled and all sorts of little sports in and out. So before we get started, let's bring our boys in. Kenny, how we doing tonight, boss?
What's up? What's up? What's up? I'm ready and fired up tonight. Let's go.
Let's bring on Glenn. Glenn, how you feeling, brother?
What's going on? Driving, you got me multitasking, you know what I mean? It's Friday. Let's get it, boys.
So let's just go right into it. Let's talk a little bit. All right, so Biden picked Kamala Harris. We had a little episode on Wednesday. Apologize for missing out on that. But you guys held down the fort. I watched the video. Good episode. So now Biden and Harris had their first appearance on TV, and it seems like Trump tried to come in and do a little meeting kind of ad hoc at the same time, try to steal the thunder, so to speak. What do you got?
Yeah, definitely. Hang on one second. Go ahead and take it really quick.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I guess I didn't really see it that way. I didn't watch either of them, so I watched them both after the fact. And actually, I watched two of Trump's videos because I thought he was talking about a different one. I actually thought the one that he gave them was pretty good. I know that some Republicans knocked him for his comments about the U.S. Postal Service. That's the only part that I can really think of that was controversial. I like the fact, the media does what it does, so they blocked off what he was writing about, but he had the charts up. I like when he does the charts, makes it really obvious so that people can see that a lot of the things that they're saying are just not true. He was talking about how we compare with the world when it comes to COVID-19 and how our economy is doing and the opportunity for our economy and what we're spending on COVID and how much the PPEs we have, all that type of information. I feel like the charts are very powerful that way. So I appreciated him coming in. I don't know. I would assume because Trump is that type of dude that he may have. I will even go farther than to say he may have. I would say he probably did time that up. Biden Harris. I watched the intro to Kamala Harris, and I apologize if I end up butchering her name. Don't get at me like people did Tucker, but I just feel like, at the end of the day, they did what they needed to do. I would have expected a bump there. You saw a little bump there. To me, nothing earth-shattering except for the fact that Biden was able to speak for 15 minutes without losing his mind. So
Glenn, did you see it the same way, or do you think Trump was trying to come in and try and steal that thunder?
Yeah, I think he was trying to steal that thunder on the low. I mean, this press briefing that he held, it wasn't scheduled at all. And then all of a sudden he just impromptu, literally same day, scheduled this impromptu press briefing right at the time that Biden and Harris were having their first joint event. And in my opinion, Trump sounded unusually slow. I mean, he even sounded lethargic at times. He didn't really have, Trump's a high energy individual. And to me, he didn't have that high energy. He was repeating a lot of the same talking points. He's been doing that a lot lately, repeating a lot of the same talking points in every speech that he's given. Definitely the past, I would say 3 speeches. But Wednesday was odd because he repeated a few of the same talking points in the same speech, like 4 or 5 times. So it was kind of weird. But he did attempt to take away from the Biden event. But it's funny because he put out a tweet saying that the ratings on CNN and he called it MSDNC. I ain't gonna lie. I thought that was pretty clever. I ain't gonna lie. That was pretty slick. He called it MSDNC, said that they got low ratings, and now that the ratings are out, the Biden-Harris event got much more attention, much more viewership than Trump's briefing. Again, Trump's briefing wasn't scheduled, so I will give him that. But, he kind of leaves himself wide open when he puts out a tweet claiming that the airwaves were dead this morning. He said something like the airwaves were dead this morning, or the ratings were dead on CNN and MSDNC, because of boring Sleepy Joe and so on and so forth. But also too, if you look, I know Kenny had brought up the charts, and all of the charts well, not all of them, but I would say 2/3 of the charts, they were all percentage based, and they were all like percentages relative to the second quarter, which, you can't sit there and tout, oh, the stock market is up 300% when the shit second quarter was down damn near Great Depression numbers.
Oh, you mean the same thing? Hold on, that's the same thing. Hold on, that is exactly the same thing that Obama did when it came to the job numbers. So,
yes, yeah, absolutely. And I called it out then too. Yeah. You got to call a spade a spade.
I'm fine with that.
Yep. Call a spade a spade.
Here's the disagreement that I will have with Glenn on the lethargic. I actually watched two of Trump's press conferences. He did one on the 11th as well, which is the one that when I had first messaged Glenn, for those of you who don't know, I didn't see it. So Glenn had told me to check it out because he wanted to comment on it. Well, initially he told me 2 days before. I actually thought his one on the 12th, the impromptu one, which if you Google impromptu, he does a lot of impromptus.
That was actually a better one, believe it or not. That was a better one.
The impromptu one wasn't bad, but the one on the 11th was bad. The 11th was the one where I thought he looked more lethargic. So it wasn't the one that actually coincided exactly. The one the day before, it did look low to me. The one on the 12th was much better. The one on the 11th was tough. I mean, it was so tough. I was like speeding through it.
They were both pretty bad. The one on the 11th was bad. It's funny because all while Biden had his little hiatus, Trump kept talking about how Biden could speak, how Biden couldn't complete a sentence. And, Trump, especially not the one on the 11th, the one on the 11th was just bad because he was just repeating the same talking points over, in my opinion. He did have a few mishaps, but the one during the Biden Harris event was horrible. I mean, he was mispronouncing words. He referred to doctors as doxers and kept saying fatalities instead of fatalities. And it was just weird. And he did it more than once too. And it was almost like he was having a moment where, I don't know if you guys remember the one speech. This was probably, I would say 3 months ago, where he was saying, he meant to say the origins of the investigation, but he kept saying the oranges, like citrus fruit, the oranges.
It's some kind of like PTSD from dealing with this every day, right?
I'm cool with that too, and I'm not nitpicking at it. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because he kept harping on Biden about it.
But the big difference is that Trump has given about 1,000 speeches in the last 2 months as compared to like 3. So when you come out and everybody's waiting, they see. That's why, I would agree with you, what you told me earlier on the phone, that, Biden had a good speech. He read it off a teleprompter, but he did a good job when he was welcoming in Kamala Harris. I didn't think he did a very good job on his mask talk. I thought that was a train wreck, and we can touch on that. But in the first one, he did a good job. But it's going to be under a microscope when you don't come out. You do come out, and you're fumbling, and you're all over the place, and you're in your notes like this, and the camera's on you. I mean, if I'm doing this interview right now, and I'm not trying to look at this camera, and I was just here the whole time, people would be like, "What is he doing?" Like,
right.
And so, hey, I'm okay with it. I'm fully okay. If you pronounce something wrong, you can definitely attack Trump. I'm 100% okay with that because he is going to attack the other side. So that is fair game. But I am going to point out that when one person's saying 8 million words and one person's saying 1,200, the person saying 1,200 words better get those 1,200 right.
I mean, and that's
man, get out of here, man.
Maybe it's not going to be like that now, Glenn, but as well as I do, you even had the counter going. The last 2 episodes, you're like 128 days we haven't heard from Biden. Like this dude was like, what's Jessica Smart or somebody? Like he disappeared. It's like, is he coming out of the basement?
He was ghost. I thought he might have had COVID or something on the low. I was like, what the hell was going on, man? But yeah, he was ghost.
Before we jump into the next topic, is there anything Biden, Harris, Trump we want to cover real quick before we get into the next one?
I don't know if I think Kenny had a few things in terms of like actual COVID numbers. I know Trump talks a lot about, just in terms of COVID, the overall general public, really doesn't approve of his response to the COVID-19. I know a lot of his supporters do, and there's that discussion there. But he took some questions on Wednesday during this impromptu press briefing, and he was asked about the death toll. And of course, Well, he was asked about the death toll, but Trump always, he never talks about the death toll. He always wants to talk about new cases. And he claims that, cases don't tell us much because cases are an artifact of testing. He does.
He generally wants to talk about the death rates, because talking about total death numbers, that's the thing that bothers Trump supporters. And I'll just tell you this, as a Trump supporter, like, if you want to talk real numbers, then you have to talk real numbers. They don't want to do that. They want to say, hey, let's look at total deaths. Well, hold on a second. We're the third biggest country in the world. And so, of course, our numbers are going to be higher than Costa Rica. Like, what are you talking about?
No. And of course, absolutely. Nobody's,
people are saying that.
You can't those people are idiots. You can't compare.
But the mainstream media is pushing that. Me, you, and Fred, we watch politics. We follow this stuff. The average Joe every day on the news is saying we have the most death cases. Now, and I know that China's lying about its numbers, so we can't even take that for what it's worth. India seems to be having a surge right now, so we'll see what happens with that.
They got like 1 billion people over there, man.
Right.
Yeah, so India is crazy. If you want to talk about the population, you got to also bring their per capita in too, because India has.
But we have to wait till all their numbers get completed, because first of all, that place is not ran. It's ran a little bit differently than we are. They're pretty much.
They're not going to have as much concrete information states. Either.
Correct. So all I'm saying is that when you see, if you go on CNN, you go on MSDNC, and you got all these, I'm stealing it. And you go on there and you see total deaths, highest total deaths. It's like, well, what are the death rates in terms of, people wanted to actually like pat Italy on the back. Their death rate per case was like 10%. Ours is 1.
At the end of the day, we're a large country. What are we, 350 million or something like that? In our country, so over 350 million and growing. We're a big country, but the reporters, because again, Trump kept wanting to talk about new cases. In this particular, if you go back and watch it, I was trying to figure out a way to chop up some clips of it.
About that because the new. It's so funny, and this is what he was pointing out, because I watched the same thing. He did bring up new cases. He brought up new cases dropping, because before, that's all they would talk about. You watch all the other questions. At no point did they ask about the death rate percentage. They never asked about that. They constantly asked about new cases. He actually, if you remember in the interview with the guy from Fox, the guy said, look at the new cases. He said, where's your death rate? Oh, I don't have that one. You don't have the deaths. Come on, bro.
Of course, everybody has the death.
So my point is that instead of showing the whole picture, right, which is what I try to do when I do my little sub videos of this kind of stuff, I show the whole picture. They just want to show whatever's looking bad today. Is the deaths looking bad today? We'll talk about deaths. Oh, that's looking good today? Cases are looking bad today? Let's talk about cases. And I'm not saying that that's what, but that is what Trump has done. That he's flip-flopped back and forth, but he's been leaning more. People have been pressuring him recently to talk about the death rate or the death toll. He's been leaning more toward new cases, because we've been doing a lot of testing right now.
But not in comparison to UK. UK death rate past couple days 0. France death rate 0.
Way better. No, way better. No, you're talking about when something has gone somewhere and then left somewhere. That's like comparing it to New York's death rate is pretty much 0 right now. So if you want to compare New York's death rate now, because it's already ran through there, America is a set, and I think this is important for viewers to understand. America is not as condensed as Europe is. So when some of these places that have already gotten it, let's compare their total numbers to our total numbers and then use the rate, not what happened this past week, because it didn't get to Florida. It got to Italy way before it got to Florida. Italy gets smoked by every country. Their death rate was almost 10%. They had the highest, I believe, of any industrial nation. So Italy is a loser. I don't give a damn if they don't have somebody die the rest of the year from it. It's absolutely like nobody should be bringing up Italy. Italy is an absolute train.
That's why nobody brought up Italy. I'm not talking about Italy. I brought up UK. I brought up France. And look. And the only reason I brought that up is because whenever Trump does his comparisons, the main comparison that he does is to Europe. So he compares to Europe. So he keeps saying that, you
got to look at the whole thing. Again, France, right? France had 30,000 deaths and 212,000 cases. We can put it up on the screen right now. It's going to look bad for France. Cannot compete with any part of America in that area. None. 212 cases. They have an average per million. The amount of deaths per million is 466. That's not good. Their death rate of people that have it is almost 12. It's over 10%. It's 30,000 deaths in 212,000 cases. That's, I want to say off the top of my head, that's about 12 to 13%. That is higher than any state by far, by leaps and bounds. And so to me, you look at these places and it's like, these aren't good. Italy, 35,000 with 250,000 cases. They're at like 15%. These countries did a terrible job. Now you look at new deaths. Italy has 3. France has 18. Well, why so low, Sway? Because it's already ran through there. So people have to look at when the virus ran through the area, and we can all look at the data. When it ran through, right now it's running through Florida. People have tried to compare.
Well, it's running through a lot of the Southeast. And most, I would say, I would venture to say from South Carolina or Georgia on down. I mean, Alabama doesn't look good. Georgia doesn't look good. I mean, the worst states right now are Georgia, Florida, Texas, California.
Well, it depends what you mean. Again, it really is important that we're being concise and accurate in terms of, well, what do we mean by it looks bad? Like Georgia.
Well, new cases are up.
Okay.
New cases are up.
But new cases are up means nothing. This is what I'm trying to tell you.
Death tolls are up.
But of course they're going to be up whenever you hit the spike. Is it astronomically high? No, it's not. Not in Georgia. I mean, obviously, I live in Georgia, so I look at Georgia all the time.
Well, I mean, if you want to compare it to the rest of the states, and that's the thing I don't let them get into.
You still have way more death rate high in Maryland. The death rate in is 1.9 in Georgia. 1.9. So the cases per death is really good in Georgia, 1.9. Again, I just told you, Italy's was like, whatever, it was 14%. France is like 12%. We're at 1.7. That's what Georgia's at. So yes, we're hitting a peak, but you got to look at cases percentage towards death. They're not, like, if it's 1.7, we can last with that. And actually, this is a good time to bring up, and we'll get to Zach Rourke's comment in a minute, but this is a good time to realize, and I brought this up to you before the show. I mean, we have 3 people watching right now, and I hope this gets up because it is important for people to realize more people, and if Fred wants to pull it up, Fred, can you put this up there? There are more people that have died in America in 2020 of pneumonia than have had COVID, and they split those 2 up. So they do not include the deaths of
the pneumonia COVID combined deaths.
That's not the right one.
Okay, one second.
Go to the third one.
Yep.
Got a lot of charts going on.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And what that chart right there that he brought up would have showed you is that and this will segue. Let me go ahead and let you close out, Glenn, because this is good. I'm going to tie this into the football argument. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, cool. No, I mean, absolutely. The death tolls in other areas, 0. The argument that it's ran through these places, at the end of the day, it's a virus. I know that here in America, we've talked about a potential second surge and things like that. The first surge hasn't really gone anywhere. And I know that Trump and I don't want to politicize this thing, but I know Trump likes to keep it a state by state thing. But when you have to look at the country, and so I'm glad you have this up here. As a country, 5.4 million cases currently and rising, deaths 171,000 and rising. So most of those people recover.
Hold on. Let's go ahead and actually, while you have that one up, Fred, let's drag it down, please.
Yes, sir.
Drag down exactly the one you have up there, because I want people to get the accurate representation, and so many of these things are just not true. So go down. Just keep dragging down after all that. And again, you have to break it up by state because so many of these states are in different spots. So go ahead, go up. Hold on, go back up we'll go cases first. So down a little bit.
Well, this is the thing. Trump likes to compare to other countries. And that's fine if you want to do that, but you have to keep it. If you're going to do it, if you're going to do it, because it benefits Trump to do it on a state by state basis. Certain states are doing better than others, but if you're going to do that, But we don't take certain provinces in Europe, or certain counties in the UK or in France. We just say France, or we just say the UK. We just look at the country as a whole. But here in the US, they want you to break it up by state, but we're not doing that for other countries. So it kind of is an apples to orange comparison. Well, we're not saying the East region of Europe, or, we're not taking certain provinces of Europe.
That wouldn't make any sense, though. The reason that you're breaking it up is because Italy is about the size, is a little bit smaller than California. So those two can compare. The corner province in Italy is like comparing it to Atlanta. So no, you wouldn't do it that way. We're only comparing it to make something as apples to apples as possible. As this chart shows right here, look at the trend. The trend is down right now. So that's in new cases. And if Glenn drags the chart down 2 more charts, the other one's cumulative active. So of course that number's going to go up. It's a cumulative number. Same with deaths. You go down to the next chart and you'll see the deaths. Okay. And you see how it peaked, it dropped, and then it goes up, and then it peaked, and then it looks like it's dropping again. And if you click on that third box, that's the 7-day average, which would be, that's the 3-day average. Go to the right a little bit. Right there, click on that one. So you can see the 7-day average, and it looks like we've hit our peak. We'll see, but it certainly looks like it's going that way. Now, that's as a nation. But again, as a nation, it's good to kind of litmus check that. But the reality is again, New York's done. Most of that big lump that you see there at the beginning, that was New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts. This death rate lump at the back end, which is about half the size, I would say, looking at it, is Florida, Texas, California, Georgia, far more places with far better death rates. Our death rates now, I would expect our death rates to get better because we're not over-ventilating people, which we were initially. We're not shoving people in old folks' homes like we were doing before. So we are making better decisions that way. But I'm just shocked that people are not comparing us to other countries and being happy. They're trying to find ways that comparing us to other countries, we're worse off. And we're not. Our data does not show that. And not our data. This is the WorldCom's data. And again, if you look at the death rates of the other places, yes, it hit them, just like we talked about before, where you end up getting herd immunity, just like New York right now. We could look up New York in this stat, and we'll find out that nobody's really getting it in New York. There's lots of days where New York has 0 deaths now. It's not because New York figured it out. It's because it ran through there, and it's just not there anymore. Not the same way that it is in Georgia and Florida. Go ahead.
I want to ask you something really quick, Kenny, because in that same press briefing that Trump held during the Biden-Harris event, he talked about how a lot of states and a lot of governors are handling COVID-19 in a manner to almost to say that they're trying to personally hurt him going into the election, like they're trying to purposefully. And I think it's just crazy to think that, you know what I mean?
I think it's absolutely true. I mean, Biden just kind of proved it the other day. When you come out and you talk about making national rules, when again, we can go back into the same group of charts and we could go state by state, and what you'll see, anybody here can do it, okay? Anybody here can go and look them up. And if you go state by state, you're going to see, you can go to New York. Why would New York, with 0 deaths, okay, if you go to New York and you look at, go to New York, go to their death rate, slide down, all the way down. Again, you're looking at the same charts, right? Your daily death rate. There you go. Mm-hmm. So you see how low their chart is dropped. Why would those, and actually that's cases. So go down 2 more.
Yeah, that's cases.
And you'll see their deaths, because some of those
those are total deaths. August 11th.
Right there you go.
Yeah, it dropped.
So you'll see there's some where they have 9-10 million people there, and yet they have as many deaths as there are in Wisconsin or Arkansas. 10 a day, 8 a day, 6 a day. You're going to put these people under the same regulations that you're going to put somebody in Florida that has 500 deaths a day. I mean,
absolutely not. And that's not what I'm talking about. And I agree with you there.
That is political. To me, there's no doubt in my mind that shutting down jobs, I heard Hogan in Maryland talk about re-shutting down, and we could go to that the same charts that I'm looking at. That chart looks just like New York. Maryland's cases and deaths are very low. We can go to, here we go, Maryland. Let's go to the deaths. Okay, let's look at their chart. Okay, there you go. So they're going to reopen? I mean, they're going to reclose? Are you serious? Like, look at those numbers. How are you going to reclose? That is 100% political. You can't tell me that's about saving lives. And actually, if you look on that, go ahead and, Fred, go ahead and put the pointer at March 23rd to June 10th. Show me where March 23rd to June 10th is. Yep. March 23rd is there. Yep. Then show me, go ahead and show me June 10th. Yep. Doesn't it look like all the deaths were in there? Oh, that's right. That's when we were socially distanced and told to stay in the house, and there was a home order. You can do the same thing for Georgia. Every state, there was no spike beforehand. They literally put people in their houses, closed people up, and more deaths happened. I looked at 6 different states. It's the same thing across all states. Now, I'll save some people the time today, but go pick one up. Surprise me and have it not be that way. But that's what I've seen.
Absolutely.
And so
and
for me,
again,
it's hard to believe that that's not politics, people saying, hey, let's shut this down. They know that hurts Trump. They know Trump's economy was doing well. It's going to help Trump if people are open. I mean, you'd agree with that, right? If Trump's economy is open and it does well, he has far more to gain than right now. Of course, the numbers look horrific because
absolutely, for sure. I think, but in terms of, I mean, nobody, let's say come November 4th, we wake up November 4th and the news is that Biden won the election. Nobody's going to say, oh, okay, Biden won the election. Let's just send all of our kids back to school already. That's what Trump is making it seem like. It's
exactly
not the case.
What's going to happen. Here's how it's going to happen.
Absolutely. No, the only way that will happen is if on November 3rd, the entire country is down 99%, and then we will open November 4th. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Nobody's just going to say, oh, it's not going to happen. Absolutely, it's not going to happen.
Exactly what's going to happen. They're going to show you the same charts I just showed you and go, look how low it is in Maryland. Dude, we're good to open. Oh, look how good it is in New York, man. We're good to go. We really, because we've been wearing our masks the last 2 weeks, and most people are not like me. They're not going to go look up these charts, and then they're going to go, wow, it looks like we really knocked this thing out. And they're not going to look into the dates of when the shutdown was, and they'll go, look, because this is what I read in the National Geographic. It said, oh, because people were sent, because we shut down the shutdowns, basically, we reopened. The reopenings is what caused this. No way, Sway. A month and a half later, all of a sudden it caused it. A month and a half later in Maryland, almost 2 months later in Georgia. Yeah, all of a sudden, 9 weeks later, because we reopened, all of a sudden it came back. No, that's not what happened. Like, that's bullshit. If it happened 5 days after, then we would all be in agreement. Yup. Hey, this is what happened. But it didn't happen like that. Nothing happened. It ended up coming. It ended up getting into wherever it needed to get into, like viruses do. And then all of a sudden, the numbers shot up in Georgia. That's how it happened. There's not 2 spikes. It got down here one time majorly and ran through. The same thing it's done in pretty much 45 out of the 50 states. I think maybe 1 or 2 that I looked up had certain bumps. So all I'm saying is that all the Democrats have to do is show all the same data I'm showing and go, oh, you know what? And give it like 3 months so people don't go back and check the dates and they go, well, we've been good. We can go ahead and reopen everything. And people are going to give credit to the masks, which didn't make a difference. They're going to give credit to social distancing, which, again, I can show you time and time again, it just didn't look like it did anything. And so, again, that's what charts they're going to use because it doesn't look bad right now. And look how bad people are talking about it. And actually, go ahead, Fred.
And I was going to say all this stuff is leading into our next topic, basically about how we're using all this info, and now they're trying to close down all like college sports, moving them into the spring, taking away all fall sports. I think some even local schools around here in Maryland have canceled all fall sports and saying, hey, we're going to do them in the spring, which is going to be,
weird.
Yeah.
Well,
and hectic too, because if you have 2 or 3 kids that play spring sports,
it's going to be
crazy.
A nightmare, dude.
It's going to be a shit show. There's not enough fields.
It definitely is. It definitely is. And I wanted, Fred, go ahead and pull up the third link.
Yes, sir.
And then if you can make, just like you did last time with us being the 3 little ones with a bigger chart.
Yep.
This is very important because
the vital statistics.
Yes.
Okay.
It should be the death counts by sex, age. Nope, not that one.
Okay, I got you.
The third one down.
Yep.
The death counts by sex and age. This is the chart that actually shows that more people have died from, and this is the CDC. Okay, this is data.cdc.gov. Anybody can look it up. I encourage people to look it up. Go ahead and drop down, go 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 down. All right, pause right there. All right, so go ahead and you can see where it says all ages. Okay, down near the bottom, you'll see where it says all ages in the middle under age, and you'll see 149. Now this is 2 days behind because it takes 2 days to update this thing. So what you can see here is COVID deaths are 149,000. You go over one column, that's how many cases, 1.6 million cases. Okay, and then you go over one more column, that's how many people have died of pneumonia. So more people have died of pneumonia than have died of COVID-19. Now, why does that matter? That matters as we go up the chart. If you don't mind, go to where it's 5 to 14 years old. That is age of any school kids, okay, that would be playing sports all the way up to their freshman year in high school. Okay, this is what we're shutting down kids' sports for. 23 deaths. Now, the argument can be made, hey, every life matters. We don't want to lose any lives. I'm on that board. I don't want that 23 to be my kid. But if you go over 2 columns, you'll notice 88. So almost 4 times, like 380% more people died of, more of those kids died of pneumonia. We have never shut this down for pneumonia. You go over 2 more columns, 51 people have died of influenza. That's more than twice the number of COVID. That is to the point this year. So we've never shut down for just a general flu. So then you go to the next column, 242. If you add those together, you get 265 in all your football playing years from the time that you're Joe Burrow all the way down to my son when he first started at 5 years old, okay? You add those numbers together, you get 265 deaths. In that same grouping, and we have another chart for this, but I'm going to save you that chart, 705 drownings, 5,100 homicides, and almost 7,000 suicides. Yet we've never stopped sports because kids were killing themselves. And the numbers are not even close. And so what I'm saying is kids need sports. There will be more kids, I believe, that commit suicide than certainly the 23 people from ages 5 to 14. Me and Glenn both know people, because I know some of them are the same people, that committed suicide between ages 5 and 24, right? I can actually name about like 8 off the top of my head.
I was going to say probably 10 off.
Yeah, it's close.
Which is crazy.
For sure, which is a shame.
Is that normal? People growing up with that many kids? Is that normal?
Yeah, I don't know. It's
our neighborhood was fucked up.
And that was back when life wasn't so bad, right?
Right.
But my point is that these depression numbers came out the other day and said that a quarter of people between, and I want to say it was somewhere, and I don't have this one, but it's between like 25 and 35. A quarter of people said within 10 days of this survey, and it was a survey of like 6,000 people, they had thought about committing suicide. This social distancing stuff is real. We need sports. And to me, there's no data here that would shy me away from opening up sports. I think it's time to open. You are your responsibility for your own health. If you don't feel comfortable, if you're older, if you're compromised, don't go. Don't go.
And I think that's the big question here, all the X factors that people don't realize, right? Like Trevor Lawrence came out and said it. He's like, look, if we get sent home and we don't have football, you're going to put all these kids back in environments that they were trying to get out of. They didn't want to be in that environment. They were struggling in that environment, and that's why they worked so hard to get out of it and play football. That was their means to get an escape. And now you're going to throw them right back into that environment.
Well, they wouldn't necessarily go back home. I mean, if they're, let's take the player that's there on a full scholarship, for example, or even somebody that's a walk-on. I mean, if you made the team and, because we're in a pandemic, the school decides to postpone the season, they're still going to let you study academically. They're not going to send you home. Now, if colleges decide to do
so then you're saying that they cancel football, but then you're going to go into your auditorium?
That's what I was getting ready to say. So I was like, it doesn't really make sense to me that you would cancel football and then still hold class. So, if they are being sent home to do virtual, then that's something that, that seems like it would have been inevitable, which would be the ultimate reason why they canceled football in the first place. And that wouldn't really be, they wouldn't be getting sent home because of football being canceled at that point. They would be getting sent home because that is the total school's protocol and how they're handling a pandemic. But I agree with Kenny on this one, that kids need sports. Kids need that interaction. It's funny because down here we started school on Monday of this week, and we attempted to do the virtual. Like I said, my wife is pregnant. We didn't want to send our kids to school having potentially, bring something home. My 14-year-old son did the virtual this week, but we contacted the school. We went up there and had a meeting with them today. We're going to send them on Monday because fuck that. Like this is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous.
It's
like
tough.
These kids, it's crazy. I mean, we're going to send him. I mean, he's been wrestling. He wrestles with a lot of the kids that wrestle for the high school anyway, on the club team. So, I mean, these guys are wrestling and rolling around on the mats and sweating and everything anyway. Not only that, but Kenny kind of brought it up. If you look at the mortality rate of kids, it's almost non-existent. I mean, it's negligible at best.
23 out of 350 million. I mean,
it's
not that I don't care. Clearly, any child dies, I would lose my mind.
Well, and I think the main thing that people were worried about is, of course, it affects the elderly and it affects people with compromised immune systems or previous conditions. So, a kid could bring this home and transmit it. And I think that's the big issue that people are kind of worried about. However, like if you're taking care of in-laws or something like that, and they're, you got to make sure, and because we can't continue. And this is going to kind of sound harsh, but I don't really know how to put this in a non-harsh way. We can't, at the sake of our in-laws and elders, kill our children. Like we can't do that. And it really is that drastic. We are killing our children. If you look at the suicide rate of 2020,
crazy, man.
My wife pulled up something, and it was from kids ages like 7 to 12. Like not even like, it's just like 5 years. It was up like 48%.
We don't know what all this is doing to them mentally, man. No one's ever gone through, like in our lifetime, obviously, maybe back in like 1918 or something like this happened. But you know what I mean? Like these kids, we don't have the knowledge to guide them through an era like this.
I think it's even worse now than back then, because nowadays the phones, one of the things they've done, and I'm sure Glenn's gone through this, being all three of us as being dads of kids that are young teens and stuff. They really believe that Snapchat people are like, they are real people, but they believe they're like me, like they're Fred and they're Glennon. You know what I mean? They don't realize that somebody's just putting their name in and swiping and not. They think that person's thinking about them, and that's where they're getting their sense of value. And so all of a sudden, they're getting that, but they're not getting any real interaction. And it almost is like you're in a video game. It's kind of crazy because I was thinking about, and I don't want to go on a tangent, but I was thinking about
Avatar.
What Elon Musk was talking about how maybe we're a simulation. Like that's actually, it's funny you said that without me even saying it, because it kind of seems like that. It's freaking weird, man. And
it is, man. It is. It's weird. And I mean, even like I didn't even realize it. Literally today, my 7-year-old. Because she's like the youngest aside from the baby, but she was like, I haven't been outside, or not outside, but I haven't been anywhere since March. And I'm like, you don't even realize it. And I'm like, damn, she hasn't. And it kind of was crazy because just this past week she's really been like acting out and doing things. It's really kind of acting out of character. And we're kind of thinking, well, our 11-year-old, she has friends. She started to do sleepovers and stuff like that. She's on the gymnastics team. My 14-year-old, he's state champion wrestler, so he's got his wrestling buddies. And so my 7-year-old, she doesn't really have like a core solid group of friends, really, like the older kids do. And at first, I was talking to my wife, and we were like, maybe she just is seeking attention. Like we don't know what's going on. And then literally my wife was like, I don't think she's been anywhere. I don't think she's like been anywhere in the car since March. And then I'm talking to
them, right?
And it's like, where do you take them if everything's shut? It's funny how you talk about your other kids and their sports. It's like you take those away, and it's like, I mean, thank God that I have 4 kids. So at least for the 4 kids and me, we can play some games and interact a little bit. But like I've seen it. Like I don't want to call one of my children out that lives with me, but oh my gosh, man. I mean, it's been a tough a tough road. And I'm like, I did the same thing you did. I was like, what's going on? And then I'm like, I step back. I'm like, what do I mean what's going on? I know what's going on. And you take the fact that 40 million people have lost their jobs. Kids don't know how they're supposed to react when their parents lose a job. Kids don't know how they're supposed to react when all of a sudden their parent hates the president or it loves the or whatever it is. All of a sudden they're super duper into politics now because it's election year and they're nervous. They don't know whether, for me as a Trump guy, I am very nervous if all of a sudden Biden gets in, and I feel like that's going to drop the stock market. And on the other side of the coin, maybe you think, oh, well, if Biden gets in, he's going to do these, projects and stuff, and it's going to really help teachers and people in the psychology field and social workers. And maybe my wife's a social worker, and so we want that job. Whatever side you're on, your elevated stress is going to be what your kid sees, and they don't even have any way to decompress. There's no release valve, and I got to give Trump credit, and I know I always give Trump credit, but
what else is new?
But Trump did say, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, that suicides are going to become a real issue. He said that back when he used to have Fauci come out, and people were kind of mocking him, like, "Oh, well, how do you, and it's like."
I mean,
since you brought that up really quick, Kenny, I just want to ask you, and this is just really quick because it's Trump. It's not really sports, but you brought it up. I just want to ask you because Trump has been floating this idea that he's going to cut the payroll tax, right? So he's going to cut the payroll tax during the pandemic, as part of like the stimulus efforts and economic stimulus efforts and things like that. However, payroll tax funds Social Security. A lot of people don't know that. Payroll tax funds Social Security. So permanently cutting, and he talks about permanently cutting payroll tax. So if you do cut permanent payroll tax, you actually incur a funding issue as it pertains to Social Security that Trump created, by the way. So I just kind of wanted to see what
I don't know where you're like for our employees, right? They have a payroll tax that they pay.
Yes.
It comes out. It then also Social Security also comes out, and Medicare also comes out. So I'm not understanding where you're saying it's the same thing. What do you mean?
No, payroll, because payroll tax funds Social Security, and what
do you mean funds it?
When you see it, because when you see it, that's exactly, people don't understand how it works. Like when you see it on your pay stub, it doesn't say payroll. It just says so. It doesn't say payroll anywhere on your pay stub.
It says federal taxes.
Yeah, it just says federal taxes.
I was assuming
Social Security is a part of payroll tax, and a lot of people, like, you can look it up. Social Security is a part of payroll tax. It's funded by payroll tax.
My understanding is that he is talking about the federal taxes on your payroll check, not all payroll taxes. So I'll have to look back, and maybe people thought of it that way, and maybe that is what he's doing. I thought,
because he was actually asked.
Taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he was asked, and he said,
"Yeah, he was actually asked, and it was brought up. It was the reporter literally asked him, a payroll tax funds Social Security, and I looked it up because I didn't know that, to be honest with you, and it does payroll tax funds Social Security, and so Trump was asked this. It's kind of
a play in words, but I feel like it's a play on words because the payroll tax. It depends. When I hear payroll tax, yes, payroll tax is all the things that come out of your payroll as taxes, one of them being Social Security, one being Medicare. But when he said no payroll taxes, I thought he meant no federal taxes on my paycheck. That's what I thought.
That would be nice. That would be great.
That's what I think he's saying. I don't think.
Well, like I said, he was asked about it specifically, and he actually said he was literally asked it just like that. And the reporter said that payroll tax funds Social Security. Trump agreed and said, "Yes, we plan on cutting payroll tax, and then we plan on paying security with the general fund, paying security out of the general fund." And so I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, how is that going to happen when the general fund just incurred a $2.8 trillion debt? The funds aren't going to be there. So then,
first of all, Social Security is not going to be there when either of us get there, according to the current numbers now.
They've been saying that the past 50 years.
Correct. Which means that they always rob from Peter to pay Paul. I'm not saying it won't be there for us. I'm saying today's numbers, the same ones that you're going off of to say, hey, he can't do this. Yes, he can, because they'll just print more money. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of actually.
I'm not a fan of that.
Stimulus check.
That's going to catch up, by the way, doing that. That bubble's going to burst.
First of all, I thought it was ridiculous that the Democrats in the House would say, and actually right after this, let's go ahead and get into, because I know there's a rack of questions. Zach's asked a bunch of good ones and we haven't got to them yet. But Nancy Pelosi saying, oh, well, we wanted $3 million, and so we're willing to offer you
$3.5 billion, I thought, right?
Billion.
Billion,
we're willing to drop that down to $2 billion, and then they want to act like Trump's horrible for offering $1 billion, and it's like, I'm not really for any of this. Like, I do think that there's ways that, first of all, we rush this stuff because of piss poor prior planning on all sides parts, and then secondly, I think that we need to have, again, more, and we've talked about this before, but more programs that filter money. For instance, if you're a business owner and you want to hire employees, like, that's a good thing, because if we are paying employees, these employees are going to then pay taxes. As they make money, they're going to buy stuff, pay taxes. It does.
Well, absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. And just in case people don't know, payroll tax, and Kenny, you're right. I'm glad that you did break it down. The way I said it was kind of like loose, like, oh, like payroll tax, fund, Social Security. That's an accurate statement. But payroll tax, because I'm looking it up as we're talking. I want to be clear. Payroll tax is the federal fund. Which also includes Social Security. So we were both right there.
Right. It breaks it down in your paycheck, but they just take out the one. I mean, you send the whole thing in. They take out this and that. This is grimy shit that our government does, which is why I think taxation is theft, because they don't separate it like they're supposed to. They're supposed to pay this portion, and put it in almost 3 different accounts. They don't do that. And that's why the money that gets taken out of my Social Security, that ain't going to me. And it's funny because I watched the Biden debate in 2000 and the one with Mitt Romney, and they were like, oh, how bad would it have been if we all privatized our Social Security, which was offered in 2009, and then, in
2008, I thought.
No, before 8, which would have been 2004. And it was like, if it was done then we'd have all lost our ass. And it's like, no, we wouldn't have. If we didn't take it out, we'd be doing really well right now. So I was for that back then. Again, because I've been in this game a long time looking at politics, and I was like, oh, I can get my money and invest in myself? Yes. I don't want because I know damn well that money that's coming out of my account right now is not going into a me account. It's going into the Fed. The Fed can borrow from it, steal from it, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, and they're putting it into an account that collects interest also. And not only that, but because, as a business owner with employees, there's a couple different ways you can do it. So when you hand your employee a check and they see that the deductions have been made, in the average employee's mind, they're thinking that, okay, the government took out FICA and blah, blah, blah. What it actually is me, your employer. I take it out.
And then we pay.
And then I pay it. Exactly. And so you can pay it quarterly. You can pay it all at the end of the year. And so what a lot of bosses do is, or owners, is they'll take it out. They'll actually put it in an interest accruing account.
Right.
And then they'll put the bill at the end of the year. But they've made money on your tax money, and which is a slightly legal loophole as well too. But I just wanted to get your opinion on that. Trump also claims that the general fund won't have an issue, even though there's a $2.8 trillion debt, because there's just going to be all of this growth and stimulation. There's a reason why
this man's gone bankrupt a couple times.
I'm like, where is this coming from? There's just going to be all this magic growth and stimulation from the economy. I think what he's trying to kind of touch on is like demand side stimulus.
I think he's good at bringing in more money, but he likes to spend it. And so that's, I'm nervous about that as a conservative. First of all, he's never been a conservative. He's never ran as a conservative. So,
not financially anyway. No.
Well, really not in any area really conservative. I mean, he's
not like a core like Republican. No.
And so, and I'm not either, but I'm very conservative, and he's definitely not anywhere on my conservative radar. So I didn't like the other stimulus packages. I won't like this one. I didn't like his tax plan, that kind of fiscal policy stuff. I'm okay with some of it for GDP growth, I'm actually more for tariffs than I thought that I was. He kind of taught me something about that because he uses it really well in negotiations, which is funny because,
especially against China.
Yeah. And it's funny because somebody brought that up today and they were like, oh, well, he's giving $20 billion in subsidies to farmers because of that. I'm like, yeah, but he brought in $55 billion. That's a win. So I don't mind spending money to make money, but we can't keep going, oh, well, we're going to make X amount, so we'll pay. That's the builder side of his brain, and you know what I'm talking about there, right? I'm going to make that money on the next flip.
Right. I get caught up in that. I mean, I'm a real estate investor. I get caught up in that mindset too. It's easy to do, you know? It
is. It's hard to say, hey, let's pay our bills today, and then but we haven't done that, and nobody's done it on either side of the aisle. No. I mean, Clinton kind of tripped over it on accident. So
Glenn took us on a little bit of a tangent there. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's all good.
It should happen. Sports should happen. We both agree. You got to look at the data. Like, please, audience, share this, put this out, look at the freaking data. Okay? Again, I can't say it any more than that. I mean, kids of football age just basically don't die from this. You are 10 times more likely to commit suicide. It's actually closer to like 25 times
25,
yeah, times more likely to commit suicide than you are to die of COVID because you're on a football field. So,
it's pretty sad. And it's rough. I can understand people being concerned. I can understand your average citizen being concerned for themselves, or as a parent or even a grandparent. I understand that, but in terms of, I mean, let the kids breathe, man. This is ridiculous.
As it pertains to the college football argument, though, these kids are getting the best health care they're gonna get being at college in the sport they're in. You know what I mean?
Thank you. They're gonna
there.
They have access to the best facilities at college, at the training camps.
And for those viewers that don't know, I do Alabama camps where I've worked down there, and they have unbelievable staffing. I mean, Alabama is A+. I'm sure there's.
Dude, they got hyperbaric chambers for these kids and everything, just like they're in the NFL, bro.
Everything.
Great stuff.
And then that's a school by school thing, because if you're going to a D2 or D3, it was certain D2 schools have it too.
You're not going to get the same kind of thing you're getting at Alabama.
Yeah, you're not going to, but I mean, Alabama is just like a football team. I mean, when it gets cold, they got warmers on the benches and stuff. I mean, most colleges don't have that. Hyperbaric chambers. One hyperbaric chamber is like $50,000 or something ridiculous. It's like, so most schools don't have that stuff. But yeah, we have to, as of right now, I think in terms of college football, we have the Pac-12 that is out, if I'm not mistaken, and the Big Ten that is out. Did I get that wrong?
Yep. No, just Big Ten and Pac-12.
Yeah, Pac-12. Yeah,
the biggest football conferences in a while.
Yeah,
we got a lot of comments that we can go.
Yeah, let's burn through some of these.
All right, so
what's in the cup? Just water tonight. Just water tonight.
So not a lot of like questions, but a lot of comments reinforcing some of our points. Let's go through them a little bit. Jacob right here says, "Hey, Fauci, no need."
Yeah, Fauci did say. I'm gonna tell you what's funny is that 2 different articles came out right after he gave that speech, and one said Fauci says you don't need to go to the station if you don't feel like it, and then the other side came out and was like Fauci said it's okay to go vote. So it's so funny how he purposely was not taking an angle, and both sides jumped on it. But everybody knows you can go, for the most part, you can go vote. If you can vote in person, I think you should. If you need to, mail in your vote because you're sick or moved or whatever, I think you should be able to do that too.
Speaking of mail-in votes, why is Trump so against mail-in ballots? I just don't understand it. I mean,
he's worked for 40 years. So
he said that he is for absentee ballots,
right?
Which doesn't make any sense. Why would you be for absentee and not for mail-in?
It does, because mail-in would be so many more ballots, and they already tried that, and they've had such a tough time. I mean, they have one election going on like 3.5 months. I mean, tracking. Here's what they do, and it's so funny because Democrats are being dishonest about this, and what they're doing is they're saying, oh, well, we've never found fraud, right? Because when the mail-in ballot's wrong, you know what they do with it? They chuck it in the trash. So they don't go researching to see if it's fraud. They just go, oh, shit's not right, chuck in the trash. Oh, shit's not right, chuck in the trash. So they don't research it to find out if there's fraud that way. I mean, there's very little election fraud that gets tracked down.
And
so
I
don't care whether we do it that way or not, but it was just funny to me that the Democrats were specifically, Nancy Pelosi spoke out vehemently against it for like 6 years ago, and so did so many top Democrats. And then now when they think it's going to benefit them, then all of a sudden they want it. Look, man, I'm not.
I agree with you there. I'll give you that there. And I
just want
I hate
way
that,
to legitimately track it, then let's do it. But there's, this
Right.
day and age, I don't know why we're still doing things.
To me, yeah, I think I do think, and we've talked about this before, I don't want to stay on it long, but
it just worries me with Trump trying to get rid of the post office. That's my whole thing. That worries me.
I'm going to tell you, I'm not a big fan of the post office. Never have been. I know a lot of people that are, to me, I think it's done better privately. UPS, FedEx. That's what I use. But do you recommend a lot of the federal laws revolving around logistics and mail? You think the federal law should remain in place, right? Trump's trying to get rid of some legislation as well. I'd have to look at what it is, and I don't even need to know Trump's opinion on it. If somebody tells me what it is,
sentencing is pretty harsh. I mean, if you take away mail,
we're really short on time here. I want to make sure we get through all the stuff, but we can do an episode on the mail stuff. I'm just me personally. I know a guy, and Fred, you know him too, I think, that was a postmaster. This dude does nothing, makes $200,000 a year, and doesn't even ever go to work. So there is just waste there. I'm always against waste.
And you hear all the horror.
That's not a common situation, though. I wouldn't say that's common.
I know some people that work at the post office that bust their ass. That's true. That's true. On the other side of it, though, they're generally the people that are not the postmasters.
Yeah, with the internet,
it's just blow to possession. We can have a discussion.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in the weeds there because we're real short on time.
The internet and all that stuff, dude. Make a website, click on a link, let them vote that way, damn it, and you're done.
From the comfort of your home, right? Mike, why don't we do that?
Right, you're done. Tie it to your social security number, tie it to your driver's license number, something.
Well, that could work. It does get kind of difficult. I do like the idea of showing up to the polls.
Let's do that a different night, fellas. Let's do that a different night. Because I think there's a lot of meat on that bone, and we can go for an hour and a half on that.
Yeah. I mean, this is when we were talking about the COVID updates. Hey, we just reinforcing some of our points.
I definitely think that wearing a mask for them plays a role, but they're also one of the more unhealthy countries that has a lot of pollution. I'd have to look and see how much that's actually helping them. I don't know.
So, I mean, and Dave here, he's just basically saying, hey, in Maryland, within all the different counties, it's not the same. You can go from one county, you're allowed to play rec ball. You go to a different county, you're not allowed to play rec ball.
Yeah,
so it's the same thing here too. From one county, you got to wear a mask. Another county, you don't got to wear a mask. You can't go in the store, or you can go in the store. Right. And people are literally, and that's why you start to see cases spike in certain areas, because people are literally like if it's a hassle to go to the store, like if you don't have a mask but you need to go to the store, you're gonna travel to the next county if it's 5-10 minutes away.
And when we were talking about hey, suicides between the ages of 7 and like 13 or 14. You remember Stand By Me, the great kid movie when we were younger. You never had friends like you had when you were 12. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't. I mean, we're lucky because we still hang out with some of the same guys.
Right. I really do.
Lucky.
Yeah. I mean, I told my kid the other day, I said, there's something about I don't have a bunch of friends from the last 10 years I have a couple, but a lot of my friends.
No new news.
Yeah, I'm cautious about that, man. I have trust issues with people. I've seen a lot of shady people.
Yeah.
I can appreciate, and I do think there's certain things, the way that we three grew up and our neighborhood and the way that things were. I just feel like that was almost the right way. So I'm biased, but I just feel like the openness, the amount of, now some of it's shit talking, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I didn't feel like there was like in our group of people, it wasn't a lot of like whispering behind people's backs. Like it's just you just talk to the person, and sometimes you try to figure out the right way to say it. But I like to have open conversation and really,
And we're getting near the end of the comments here. So Jacob said,
"What do you say?" USPS union.
They endorsed Biden, so he's kind of saying, "Hey, look, they're backing Biden, so." They're probably going to influence the vote somehow. Maybe I'm not trying to
want money.
That makes sense. And that's a pretty valid argument. And that does make sense. If you're Trump, you still can't go trying to shut down the post office.
No, what you don't have to do is you don't have to give them $3 billion that they asked for. That's what you don't.
I agree.
But we'll see. Again, we'll have a whole nother episode on that because I think there's a lot of meat on that bone. And I don't even have a side on that outside of me not being a big fan of the USPS. But, I just try to get things out of the government.
Do you think we're going to have college football, pro football?
Man.
It's not looking that way as of right now.
Back again, and I almost think that there's the rumor mills all say it's not going to happen. I really, 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 I appreciate the Dallas Cowboys owner coming out and saying they're going to have stands and fans in the stands. I think the more that people come out and say we're going to have fans in the stands, then it's going to encourage the games. It's a lot easier to cancel games if you got no fans. So I think the motivation for people like myself that believe that the football should be done, I would very much ask those leaders and those presidents of those institutions to try to get fans out there. I think getting fans out there is going to cement the doing it, and I think it's going to be best. Even if some people get it, I think as long as healthy people make the decision to go to the game, I don't think you're going to see a huge spike in deaths, and I think it'll be good.
I agree 100% with that. I believe that families. The American people have to make the decision for themselves. Government can't continue to play daddy or ultimate big boss over people's lives and force people to stay home. I don't know if you guys know, but I mean, trying to watch a basketball game, an audience-less basketball game, it is horrendous. It is hard. It is horrendous. So I can't even imagine like baseball or something without an audience. I mean, my God.
I watched baseball, and the Orioles game was on ESPN, and it was terrible.
Yeah, it was
my team won, and they're doing. Orioles are blowing the cover off the ball for no reason.
7-7, baby, woo!
Yep.
But we gotta
probably 11-7 now.
Yeah, right. But we gotta get some people in the stands, and I also think too, guys, and I may seem a little extreme here, but if people decide to go to these football games, you can't be really forcing them to social distance. I mean, come on, people got to be able to sit with one another and things like that. If they want to wear a mask, wear it. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear it.
And if you're nervous about it, don't go.
Yeah, and if you're nervous about it, just don't go. I mean, you have that right. But here we are. We're pretty much sending our kids back to school, right?
I mean, private school's wide open.
Yeah, exactly. The private sector scholastically is wide open. So, we're sending our kids back to school. I mean, I'm sending my kids back to school and I got a pregnant wife. So most people are sending their kids back to school.
Right.
And, we kind of thought we were going to have an issue. We've got so many kids in schools kind of around the same time. They go to private schools, different private schools, because one's in high school now, one's in middle school now, one's in elementary. So rides in the morning time are kind of an issue for us. They're private schools, so they're not all bused. And, now I'm confident that most people are sending their kids back to school because literally my son came home today and he's like, yeah, I got a ride in the mornings now. I'm just going to carpool with so-and-so from wrestling. It's like, oh, they're going to school? I'm like, all right, cool. Right? So, we got to start sending our kids back to school. We got to get back to life as we know it. And, I think this was ultimately a pretty good discussion here, guys.
Yes, sir. So go ahead and give your closing statements, Glenn. Go for it.
All right, guys. So thanks again for being here, and I hope you all had a great week this week. Happy Friday. Hope you all have a great weekend as well. Today we talked a little bit about Trump. We kind of went a little over. That was supposed to be like a 10, 15-minute sort of little intro topic. It ended up being, the better half of 30 minutes, and then we had a little 10-minute interlude, if you will, about Trump and taxes. So I'm glad we did get to talk about that. But this conversation was really supposed to be about sports and just in general with some of the major conferences in college canceling their football season. I think that it is going to be pretty telling as to other sports, whether collegiately or professionally, that are going to cancel. And I just don't see how college can have a true championship with the Big Ten missing, with the Pac-12 missing. And the last that I heard or that I read that the SEC was on the fence. If they decide to jump ship and not do a season, then it's just going to be over. I mean, nobody wants to watch a season with no Alabama, no Georgia, no Tennessee, no Ole Miss, LSU. Those are the heavy hitters. So again, thanks for watching, guys. Continue to leave your comments at the bottom. This is an interesting conversation, and I'm sure we're going to pick it back up. A lot of stuff going on in sports right now. The Seattle Seahawks, they're booting players for trying to bring Poontang back to the hotel and the whole deal. It's kind of crazy, and we didn't even really get to talk about that. But I read one thing just really quick. I did read one thing where they tried to pin it as Seattle Seahawks fire black man, and it was just like that's how you turn. It had nothing to do with race. Like that's how you turn like a regular story into something that it really isn't. And I did just want to address that. I don't even know the kid's name. One thing I will say though about that particular situation. If it had been a starter or one of their main guys, I don't even think we would have heard about it. I don't think he would have been kicked off the team or even suspended or anything like that. So everybody's saying that he jeopardized the team, COVID, trying to bring a girl back. And I get that. Had it have been a Russell Wilson or something like that, we wouldn't even heard about it. Well, you ain't kicking him off the team.
I agree with that, but they actually, and I'll kick into my closing statements after this. I think Russell Wilson and them, I think somebody snitched on him. But, at the end of the day, here's the thing. We've got to play sports, people. I understand that some people aren't sports people, so they might not get it. But for a lot of us that are sports people, this is something that allows us to get our escape. This is something that allows us to compete. And for guys, especially, it allows us to blow off some steam and really dig into something and be motivated about something and happy about something. And growing up as a kid that had some tough situations, which most of us do have, some harder than others, that was really an outlet for me. And these things, you look at the suicide rates. I've been very outspoken about that, dealt with depression personally. And I'll share that with you guys because that is something that I've just seen. I've seen too many people, like Glenn had said earlier, probably 10 easily, unfortunately, in terms of people that have killed themselves. And we need this. And this is not putting people at danger, any more danger. It's actually a quarter of the danger that we're putting people with pneumonia. So let's not forget, let's not lose perspective, okay? These suicide numbers are real, and I have no doubt in my mind that by not playing sports, we will lose more people than we will by COVID. That's what all the data shows. So all I'm doing is going off data. I'm not making this stuff up because I'm politically this way or that way. The reality is kids are not dying from this in droves like they've tried to say. The numbers are all there. Go look at them. It's at the CDC. I really, really encourage people to encourage their local areas. Open your football teams. If you're parents, go talk to the coaches. Go talk to the organizations. Let them know that you support this stuff, that you support having your kids being able to play. It is time. It is time to be able to open these things up. If you're in an area where there is an outbreak, well, then be responsible. Maybe you don't go. Maybe you don't play in South Florida right now. But in the vast majority of places, you have kids that are not in any risk. It is time to let them go play and let them smile and laugh and be kids. And these types of things can be good for America. I think we can come together. I thank everybody out there for watching the show tonight. And appreciate all the love and support. We ask you to share. Don't forget to like the page if you haven't yet. Please share it. Talk to your friends about it. And we appreciate all the support.
Well, there it is. Another good episode, fellas. Thank you very much for bringing the heat again. We covered a lot. I love the sports topics. I agree with both of you. The kids got to get out there and play. I mean, I just fear like one bad incident, and they're just going to try and shut everything down. I just hope it doesn't come to that. You know what I mean? Like, just let the kids play. They've been stuck in the house since March, man. They need their friends. They need to get out there. They need to release. It's a stress release. It is. You get out there.
As Coach Boone said, let the kids play, Coach.
Right. Let the kids play. Right. So we appreciate it, and nothing but love. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you again on Monday.